Welcome to the Empowered Money Girl, where we break down the barriers to financial confidence, celebrate women's wins, and reveal the secrets to living boldly and well. I'm your host, Josette Mandela. So let me ask you, what happens when leadership, large-scale responsibility, and financial stewardship all collide? With many organizations, it can create risk and costly missteps. But with the right vision, it becomes a foundation for long-term confidence and impact. Quan Hall is here to show us how. She's the founder and CEO of HGD, an architectural and engineering firm serving private, state, and federal clients. With more than 20 years in the AE industry, Quan has managed over $3 billion in Department of Defense assets and led more than 100 capital improvement projects across the U.S. and overseas. During her time with the Navy, she earned the Civilian Meritorious Service Award for her innovative, cost-effective approach to delivering complex projects. Today, she brings that same discipline and clarity to HGD, building strong partnerships, guiding smart investment decisions, and helping clients move forward with confidence. If you're ready to see how thoughtful leadership and financial confidence go hand in hand, you're in the right place. Please help me welcome the respected, strategic, and people-first leader, Quan Hall.
Thank you. Just said that deserved a round of applause. That was an amazing intro. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, can you take us back to the beginning? What was your path like that got you to where you are today?
No, that's a good question. Everybody life has a journey, right? But I started off, I lived in Miami. I grew up in Miami with both my parents, had the opportunity to get a scholarship. Living with both my parents were great. They divorced early, but my memory as a child was that they were always there, very supportive. My dad was always supportive. Every game, sport, activity I participated in. And mom was there to buy my new car, to be there, from beginning to end. But I had the opportunity to play volleyball and had great mentorship with my high school coaches. So I played volleyball at Howard, and that brought me up to the DC area, and I've been here ever since. Um, got married, two kids. We moved to Guam for about 6 years, and came back with another baby, our youngest. And just recently, within the last 7 years, we moved back into the Virginia area. So we've been here just from the beginning. But the journey that has taken me through where I've gone through has been a mixture of family, friends, experiences, exposure. Going to college, I was a chemical engineer major, and also an athlete. So I was a four-year scholarship athlete. And engineering and athletics don't always mix. I was not the I was not the kid or that the group would come and say, let's, come and do an all-night study group with us. I was not the person they chose to select it. I was the dumb jock, according to my engineering peers. But being in that experience, it was intimidating. Engineering is, I think, in some ways designed to filter, not to filter people out, but to really pull out the best of us. So I think you go into certain types of fields, and they're just purposefully difficult to just teach you how to think. You have to figure out how to think. And in school, the thinking was not so much about concepts and theories, although that was important too. But it was really learning how to survive in an environment where mom and dad is not there, and you have to figure out how to fend for yourself. Being able to understand assignments where they're not fully um, clarify what you have to do or what you need to do, learning quickly that your professors know they know something, but they don't know everything. So sometimes they were trying to figure it out too. But it was just a great experience. So what took 4 years ended up taking 10 years for me to do my degree. But with that, it was a great learning experience of bumping my head up against the wall, um, getting rejected and pushed back into, finishing up my degree, not wanting to work, an admin assistant position, which wasn't bad, but I just didn't like the idea that I was so close to having a degree and I was finding myself in these no-end jobs. So it pushed me back to finishing my degree. And I got it in 2001. So it's been a while. And then even, yes, that was good, right? Good. But even with getting my PE licensure, taking the PE, it's a professional engineering certification for PEs. That's the top licensure certification you can have to do engineering work in the nation. So that took, I failed it three times before finally getting it. And once I did get it, it was in the midst of me being a mom to three young kids, in the midst of moving back from Guam, in the midst of just living life and working a regular 9 to 5. And at the time I was at the Navy. So the combination of thinking four different types of ways, work, mom, wife, a daughter, and then PE studying. Oh, it was nuts. It was crazy. I have stains in my book with just brown stains and tear stains from crying almost every night. Like, what am I doing? But going through that and figuring again out how to survive, it was really helpful. So once I got my PE licensure, which has been almost 10 plus years now, it was such a celebration. But that's what life has been like. And I think probably for most of us, many of us, it's a journey. But the more we bump our heads, the better we get. And that's what has gotten me to the point where I'm here at HED. Long story short, figured I worked with the Navy, done the work for almost 20 plus years, and thought, well, I can take this same work that I'm doing now and do this for myself. And that's how HED was started.
Wow, what an amazing journey. And being able to go through school, have three kids, and still manage to eventually graduate and realize, hey, this is really what I want to be doing, and just keep taking that one step after the other. So what led you to decide that okay, I've got 20 years in with the military, but I think I want to do something different. I think I want another, take that next step. What led to that decision?
Mhm. That was good. Just every question you have, I think your questions are brilliant. But it's a good question. I think you get to a place where you just get tired of being tired. You realize, everything is everything you have to do, you have to work. Everybody has to work hard. There's no way of getting around it. If you're working at a fast food or Wegmans, or if you're working engineering, lawyer, whatever, the president, whatever, everyone has to work hard. But if you have to work hard, I think it's important to work smart, you know. So to be compensated well for the hard work that you do, whether it's compensated in time, compensated in money, compensated in opportunities. There should be some compensation, some reward for the hard work that we put in. But I think the turning point for me was when we went to Guam. We went to Guam. There was a need for support for a marine buildup that they were having in that area. And so I raised my hand and said, "Hey, I'd be interested in going over. I would love to go over." And at the time, yep, my oldest was two years old. My son at the time was one, my oldest son, and the third one didn't exist yet. He came on board 4 or 5 years later, in Guam. But and it was my husband. My husband, he was working his job, and so I was like, "Hey, Damien, I think we should go ahead and go to Guam. What do you think?" And he was like, "Yes, I'm all for it." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yes, yes." And he did a stint out in India because his position had been outsourced to India, and so he had to go out and train the folks in India. But when he went out there, he loved that experience, and he thought, well, if I ever have the opportunity to go overseas again, he'd do it. So although Guam is a territory of the U.S., it's way over yonder where the Philippines are. It is in Philippines. So we packed up. My mom was like, "Well, you can't go anywhere without my grandbabies. My grandbabies can't leave me." So she jumped in our suitcase. she she came over with us, And it was just a great experience. Working in Guam, they just look over at the States. It was, Navy base that we worked at Guam, Naval Base Guam. It's a Naval Base, NBG, Naval Base Guam. Okay, so it was at Guam. It was two different bases, the Air Force and the Navy. So we worked on a Navy base. And we also lived on the Air Force base. But being out there, we stayed out there for 6 years, and they really they admire, the people who lived in the United States proper, the mainland is how they called it. And with me coming from the Navy Yard, which is right there at the heart of DC, they looked up and thought that the work that I could provide and the experience I had was very valuable. So with that perspective of what they had of me, many doors were opened up for me to have opportunities to do things in the engineering um, area that I was not able to do at the Navy Yard because there is hierarchy, there is, and that's not a bad thing, but it's very structured. It's very structured at the Navy Yard. You have your supervisors and your supervisors, and then you have the Navy leadership, and I love working with the Navy. The environment is just a great environment to work in. But in Guam, it was a lot more open. So I had the opportunity to work in different areas. And at the time, I did not have my PE license. And when you're working with the Navy, the organization I worked with, which was NAFAC, it was NAFAC. You have to have your PE licensure when you get up to a certain grade. When you get to a certain grade, you have to have your licensure. So I didn't have it, but being in Guam, I had the opportunity to work positions that were license required. But because of my expertise, I was able to support as the assistant deputy ops, having the opportunity to review proposals from ACOM, HDR, the local, architect and engineering firms down in Guam, having the opportunity to work at Walter Reed too prior to moving to Guam. But it was such a big, great experience that when we moved back into the States, what about 7 years ago to no, more than seven. How long? We've been here for a while, but moving back into the States and going to the Navy Yard, I went back to my original position and found that I just outgrown it. It was still the
Right.
same position, still the same folks, still the same good people who do good work, with doing buildings. But my exposure in Guam, I didn't realize how much I was a fish out of water. And I found myself stepping on toes without knowing that I was stepping on toes. I was like, I'm on your side. I support you fully. But we need to communicate in this way. If we want to move this project along, if we want it to be effective, and you know, um, here are the questions we need to ask, when we're negotiating. And so I would ask those questions, but it was the way I moved through the space that was very different from what they were used to. And so,
And that,
um,
I mean, that makes sense because
uh, uh,
when you moved to Guam, it was kind of like the difference between working for a small company and working for a large company. So when you were at the Navy Yard, that's like, the granddaddy, if you will, of large companies. And then you move to Guam where they were a lot more flexible because they had fewer people to move around the chessboard, if you will. And so with your experience, they could see how much more valuable you were. And yeah, I could see
yeah,
how trying to come back, that would be tough.
yeah. I think, you said, wow, I think that's exactly right. It was the difference between a small business or a smaller business and a larger business. That was the difference. That
Hmm.
was the difference. Yeah, and I think, too, I think being able to see the labor rate of what the Navy made off of every hour I worked. So every hour
Hmm.
I worked, they made like four times as much. And I had access to being able to see, folks' salary, but just because of the position I had and had grown into. But that was an eye opener too. I thought, oh, wait a minute. I'm reviewing these same contractors, architect and engineering firms. I'm reviewing their designs. I'm giving them input. I'm putting together buildings. They're looking to me for support and guidance on being able to be successful with the work that they're doing for us, interpreting and reading the contracts. But it was a no-brainer for me to say, hey, I think I could come out and do this on my own. And so pull together a business plan, talked to Damien, put in my 2 weeks notice, and off and running. And I have not looked back since, and I will not look back. I love this side of the fence for sure.
And that's amazing to decide, okay, this is going to be my new path, and then here's my 2 weeks notice and jumped in with both feet. And having a partner that agrees that yes, now's a good time, and actually supporting you, that's so refreshing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was very supportive. It was funny because, we talked about when I would leave out, and I said, all right, I'm gonna leave out next year. And it was 2017. And he said, okay, great. So December 31st, 2016, I had my notice and my letter ready, and they got it. They got it as soon as I got back into the office. And I told Damien afterwards, I said, guess what? It's done. I am done with the government. 2 weeks, I am done. And he was like, what? You're done? He was like, no, Quan, I was not meaning January 1st. I was thinking December 31st, 2017. I was like, no, D, we're doing this. We're doing this. But yes, he has been really supportive. It's been good to have him on board. I think even the things we've gone through with marriage and life and Guam, constantly having to talk things through well, all the difficult stuff, the challenging conversations, that have taken place. I think those were all, for a reason too. So even with being on this side and him, recently leaving the government to work for the company, full time, it's been good. It's still a learning curve because I'm the CEO, not for sure. I'm the CEO of the company. And I have a team, and I love my team, and he's a part of our team. He is part of HED as well, but I have the final say so. And being married and having that dynamic can be challenging, but I have found it to be very rewarding because of the respect on both sides. So I am a wife, but when I'm at work, I'm a wife, but I'm CEO, and so I wear that hat and I wear it and I take it to heart, especially when it comes to HED.
And that's what you need to be. So how would you define financial independence, and when would you feel like you truly achieved it?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, uh, it's I to not let money be your Lord. It just can't be your God. Because if it is, you live through life differently. I would journey through life differently if money was what I went after. Because it comes and goes. But no matter how much money we've attained over the years through just being with the Navy, how much money I've attained with, being with HED. There's always points and times where the unexpected happen, an emergency happens with the family, something happens with the kids. The insurance pays a portion, but then there's a large portion that's not paid. So you have a plan, you have a budget, and sometimes there's plenty to support, and then there are times in life where it's just not. So I've been with and without, throughout life, but never have been homeless, have always had shelter, have always been able to eat. The kids have been able to go to school, I don't know how, I still don't know to this day how they got through daycare because that was, it had to be private. It wasn't, no, there's no high school, there's no public daycare system. But to have all three kids at that age where they had to have daycare, we were able to pay for it under a fixed budget, a fixed income at the time. So I think now, even now, with being on this side of the fence as a small business owner, I just become used to it. But money has never driven me in how I move through space, and I think that's very freeing. Keeps it has kept me unprisoned, because I lean on a higher source, for God for sure, but that really has created a freedom to just be able to run and experience life. So I don't allow money to hinder me from being able to experience traveling to go see, our kids' games, even if they're way out in Rhode Island. And I think that there's something about that that's very freeing. But with that, it gives you the ability to innovate, to create. And so the money has continued to come and it continues to grow. And that's what I was going to say, being on this side of the fence, it's not a fixed every other week income that comes. But as the money comes, it comes in projects, invoicing, and there's nothing fixed about it except for the contract amount that you do. And as deliverables are done on the contract, then you get paid on the invoices. And then you have customers who run into difficult times and you still, working with them to be able to get that compensation. But we've always been paid for the work that we do, the processes we have in place ensure there's payment. But when it comes, it's to be determined. Sometimes we have access to capital from others, but we also have learned to create our own capital. So we have a built-in capital for lack of better words, an equity line of credit built into the company so that we don't have to lean on lenders or others. And that's part of trying to figure things out too. But I think finding something that I have really enjoyed doing. I love engineering. I love the meaning behind what I do. And just continuing to run in that direction. The money just comes. It just comes. It's just a resource. Just as time has come too. Like I have more time to do many more things that I did not have the ability to do on a 9 to 5. And I can get up and go whenever I want to because I make that choice to decide to get up and go or to work on a project or to push the project to someone else to take care of. So it's time, it's more time. There's resources, meeting many people, getting to meet you. I'm sure that there will be a door that's opened with us being able to talk and connect. But the resources that friends and families have, that's built into them, that also comes with just not running after money, but taking the time to value the things that has just been placed around us. And there's so many resources, so money is just one of them. But for sure, I appreciate money. I do, but it doesn't drive me to decide how I live, what type of risk I take when it comes to the business, but just simply enjoying what I do and not allowing anything to include money lead or guide me. So I think that's one of the key things is just having a perspective of what money is meant to do and be in relationship to just living life.
That's such a refreshing take on money and what it is. I love that, being able to see money as a tool and expect in a business that there's going to be ebbs and flows, and be able to build the business such that having those ebbs and flows doesn't put you in a situation where you're scrambling to try to figure out how am I going to make payroll this month. That's such a unique perspective, and I I haven't heard anyone do that before, actually having something inside the business itself where you don't have to go rushing to the bank to try to get more money, that it's actually part of the structure of the business to make all that happen and ensure that the business can keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We learned that early on. I say we because now Damien is there, right? But we as a whole team, our whole team. But yeah, you learn quickly. It, in business, businesses operate as businesses. Although people run businesses, but businesses operate as businesses sometimes more than they operate as people. So the relationship can make it easier to be able to navigate to getting, attaining capital. And when you have those relationships and people who have access to those resources, they're very helpful. They can be very helpful. But when those relationships are not intimate enough, for lack of better words, those resources are not given out to say, oh, yeah, here's one for you, and here's one for you, here's one for you. But there's a need. When you have a need, you want to be able to come back and say, hey, well, I can just borrow for myself. So we do borrow. We borrow from the business, but there's always a plan of how how the business gets reimbursed back for what we borrow. And whenever we borrow from it and then we add additional money into it. So the pot is consistently growing, But yeah, I do think that's important. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that out too with asking that question. But yes.
So, what advice would you have for women who are starting to build their financial independence, especially if they've been relying on a partner or maybe their job for stability right now?
You know what? I think this is my personal inside thought, right? My inside voice. But I think the work that you and I do just said, I think is important. I don't think a 9 to 5 was intended to create wealth. You can definitely save for sure, for sure. You can sacrifice the things you choose to not want to do for the sake of the future. I think that's important too. But I think considering entrepreneurship, and it could be something that's studied, through a degree, or something that you just enjoy doing. Like I also enjoy coaching. I love coaching volleyball. I could do that all my life too. And that is something I am looking into, using the business to build off, but that's a whole nother story. But I think a 9 to 5 is good, but using that to take it to be able to to um to build yourself up, for lack of better words, and then to give out from what you have, But when we give the gifts and talents that we have, and I know everybody's journey is different. Mine just happened to be engineering because that was a degree. I got a degree in, and I don't even know if I would have chosen it had I not put in 4 years and was like, okay, I got to finish up this last year to get to my 10th year. Probably would have been another major, but that was my journey, and I think when you have a 9 to 5, you can make 40, 50, $60 an hour, 30, 20 dollars an hour. But when you have your own and you're able to build your own, that $40, you realize, your employer is making 200, $300 off of every hour you work. And so if you can take what you're doing with a company and do it for yourself, there's a lot of freedom in that. But there is a risk, and I think the risk is not as big as many people would think. It's just taking the risk, to just taking a chance to jump and know that you'll be covered and taken care of. It's not a life and death thing, Not, I mean, you may have to figure out how rent is going to get paid for a little bit, and it may be uncomfortable, but it's not always a life and death thing. Is to just jump out of a job and try something on your own, and then even in the climate that we're in now, where jobs are not um, always readily available for everyone, I still think it's worth the risk. If it's in your heart, if you're driven to have a vision or dream for something you really want to do, to take the jump. But it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not a fast food cookie cutter way. You got to pay your dues. You got to walk through the trenches. But the things you learn and experience along the way is just so invaluable. That's what creates subject matter experts. They bump their heads, they figure it out, they learn. And so when I talk about engineering, even coming on this side of the fence, I did not know engineering the way that I do now. I was a project manager, but now I do mechanical engineering designs. I understand electrical plans. I actually prepare electrical and plumbing plans. I am the engineer that oversee all the work that we do to ensure, and I have processes in place for the team to follow so that they're following the HED culture and our standards. But it did not start from cookie cutter way. I had to painful nights of trying to figure it out and still learning. And I love learning. So not intimidated to learn and not intimidated just to take the jump and to know that if you figured out how to survive life this far, you'll figure it out, on the other end. But I think if people can do for themselves, in addition to having a 9 to 5, but get rid of the 9 to 5 too, I think that opens up the door for more financial freedom. What would you say? I mean, I know this is an interview between me and you, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, not everyone is cut out to be a business owner, but I absolutely agree with you. Is that 9 to 5, you can get to a certain point and then wake up one day and say, "Oh my God, I can do better than this." And that's the point where
Yeah.
you're going to have to make that decision. Are you going to look for another 9 to 5 job at a different company where you think they're going to offer you more challenges? Or do you do this for yourself? And like you say, if you have a little gumption, you can build your own business from scratch, and and it really is a great thing to have your own business. make your
Yeah.
own hours. Now, yes, in the beginning, ladies, trust me, what you're doing is you're giving up your 40-hour a week for a
Yeah.
120-hour a week job, but it's yours. You're building it. It's doing stuff that you love. And that's my other caveat is do something you love. You will never make a business out of something just because you heard somebody else made a lot of money at it. That is not basically that's a recipe for disaster. you
Yeah.
you need to build a business around something that you really enjoy doing because in the beginning you are going to be working lots and lots of hours, but once you get that business going, you can make it a lifestyle business and work the business the hours that you want to work and
Yeah.
and have a great life.
Yeah, yeah, that's so well said. It's so well said. It's true. It's true. Yeah, and I think most many businesses, let me say, many businesses are not they're not designed for employees to come on board and take the bonuses and profits, not the bonuses, but the profits that the business made. Um, Even if they bring value to the business with the work that they do, right? But having someone operate as an employee doing the operations of a business is very different from generating income for the business. The leadership, the ownership, the owners, they generate, we generate money, but when we have our consultants, our employees do the work, they're doing the work, but they're not generating income. And so that has a certain level of value. It has very high importance, but not the same value as the person who's generating revenue and negotiating. So there's a lot of freedom, I think, when you're able to have your own. And those extra hours, yeah, they could be red night specials sometimes, but but like you said, it's worth it. And you don't have to drive yourself to the ground. Sometimes you feel the need to, but I think that also comes with transitioning from that an employee mindset to an ownership or business mindset. Two different types of thinking, two different types of lifestyle. If your supervisor says jump or the company says jump as an employee, you have to jump because you get paid to jump and go left and right. But on the business side, if a client says jump, you don't jump. You say, well, why? You understand why. And then by understanding why, then you figure out a solution to go, but the solution is not always what the client says. So that makes a huge difference in being able to have the freedom to sit at the table, for lack of better words, and to be able to think through solutions for your clients and to be able to tell your clients, hey, I know you want me to go left, but based on what you want, really you want to go right. You need to go right because ABCD, so there's a lot more freedom you have to be able to express your creativity, your innovation. And sometimes it's wanted and sometimes it's not wanted, on the other side, the employee side. But they're both good sides because you're right, not everyone is meant to do it. But if you can do it, it's definitely worth the job. So,
Agreed. And so what's next for you? What ambitions are still driving you forward?
oh, good question. You know what? As far as as far as I'm living, will continue to grow, living. I'm continuing to grow and learn. But I want HED to continue being a disruptor in a DMV area, but just a disruptor, just to disrupt the normalcy, And we're A&E firm, so I mean, how much disruption can you do? But there's a lot, But we design buildings. I want to continue doing work for the small businesses that are looking to do tenant fit outs, you know, um, residential homeowners that are looking to just create a quality of life and have an office space inside their home and still be with their family, but still do business with developers. We're looking to expand and grow the community with the public sector as well. But I don't want to exclusively find myself for HED only catering to the larger companies and projects and states. I still want to continue to cater to small business and small business and residential owners. But both sides they generate different types of revenue, but they both require the same amount of effort. So the same labor is same there. So so we're looking to see how we can make our designs more efficient when it comes to our small business clients, so that we're able to provide discounted um, rates, for lack of better words, but discounted rates by having an efficient system that can bring their projects in and out, because they don't take long, but they take labor. And so we need our engineers to be able to also concentrate on the bigger projects as well. So I think this use of AI coming out is it's very interesting. But there's some parts of it that I've been looking at that I think has been could be very useful with providing efficient designs and allowing us to put in the labor needed up front by establishing a good baseline through AI technology, so that we are able to still accommodate all of our clients. But I never want to push projects away because our numbers are too high. I think that's unfair. And of course I like volleyball. So, I'll just put it out there into the space. I know this is me and you just said, right? But I would love to create a volleyball center in the local area, and to have multiple volleyball centers, and using the company to prepare designs for these volleyball centers. I think volleyball is a growing sport. I love the sport. It helps to be my sanity. God used it during high school, college, and now coaching it on this side. But I love the sport and what it brings. What I find though a lot though with the tournaments, I would coaching with coaching club, is that the air quality in some of these spaces were just not designed for volleyball. Convention centers are great, but they're not designed for volleyball. Warehouses, they could be nice, but they're not designed for volleyball. So a lot of times my girls have gone to games and they come out sick. And in the midst of COVID, that was just really, since COVID, it's been a really big thing. And I think a lot of it comes because just the air quality is just poor air quality. And I'm mechanical PE, by trade. I know a little bit of all of it, but mechanical is the big thing that I know very well. And I'm just being able to create a space where volleyball athletes can come in, have a healthy air environment, quality resource tools that they can use. I would just love to provide that for the community. And then to work in it whenever I want to coach whenever I want to. So
That sounds amazing.
so with being a disruptor and using a disruptor to do a little volleyball for the future, I think I'm excited about that. I'm excited about doing that, in the future.
Yeah, we can feel that. You are definitely excited about that. And I mean, what a nice thing. And maybe you could do it as a nonprofit either, and have the business uh, I don't know, build a foundation or
Awesome. Yeah.
whatever to make all of this come together. What a neat project.
That's cool thought too. That's cool thought, Josette. I'm liking the foundation. I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
Perfect. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Quan Hall for sharing her wisdom and energy with us. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the Empowered Money Girl with your friends. The more we spread these stories, the more women we can empower to live boldly, both financially and in every part of life. Until next time, keep thriving, and remember, your journey to empowerment starts with you.